Hello and welcome to the last game of the stage of the World Championship. As you can see in the standings, the outcome of this game will actually not change anything any longer because I already have secured my first place now after the win against DANeo in the last two-player game. DANeo has secured his second place and DANeo will finish at the third place. However, as I told you at the end of the last video, this game, the outcome has still some importance because it will count for the clicker rating and maybe more importantly, if I should manage to win this game, I might have a shot at being at the top seeding basket for the upper bracket of the next stage, and with that I could maybe avoid meeting some of the toughest opponents out there. So that could still be quite important. And of course, for the most parts of the game, those standings that you see here right now weren't known, and actually for most parts of the game it was looking like this could be the game between the three main contenders for the top two spaces, which maybe at the end also it was. So yeah, it was actually quite exciting from that perspective. Now without further ado, we are going to take a look at the game. In this game I'm in the second position, and first of all we are going to take a look at the leaders and wonders. We can see that in H3 we have Marlene Dietrich and Chaplin, so some theater synergy. There's also Pierre, there's also Bill Gates, Einstein, Steve Jobs for some lab synergy. There's no space flight. We also have Churchill, but no Manhattan Project. There is the Red Cross, but there's no Hollywood for Chaplin and Dietrich, so maybe not a clear synergy that stands out in H3. There's definitely something from everything. In H2 we have Ocean Liner Service, the Harvard College, so some strong economical wonders, maybe with Eiffel Tower, Louvre and Kremlin, some not that strong wonders. We have one military action leader in H2, we have Anthony Gaudi and Darwin as culture leaders, but no Bach and Shakespeare. We have James Watt, but no railroad. We have Maria Theresa together with the Ocean Liner Service. There's James Cook, but no Suez Canal. And we also have Nobel, but no Newton. In H1 we have both of the science wonders, Silk Road and Universitas, both of the strength wonders with Great Wall and Medici Castle. We also have one military action leader in H1 with Joan of Arc. Nostradamus can help with the strength as well. We have Saladin, we have Isabella, Columbus, Eleanor and Michelangelo. DANeo is in the first position and he starts with taking the Roman roads, which seems like a fine pick. And at my turn I will go for Hammurabi here. Of course I could also think about maybe, I think I have some different options here. For example, I could go for the library, but then maybe DANeo goes for Hammurabi. And potentially it could even happen that he goes for something like Hammurabi and Urban Growth, then Ashoka will be on the discard spot, and DANeo's turn, if he goes for Sun Tzu, maybe there will even be no leader available for me for one civil action, and even if I should get Sun Tzu, I wasn't sure if I should be happy about this. There is no Suez Canal, so maybe he's setting up for some colonies. Isn't as nice. I could maybe pressure the Hammurabi player a little bit, but I think I would rather be in Hammurabi's shoes instead of in Sun Tzu's shoes in this situation. And so I didn't like it too much to go for the library because I just don't really know what leader I might get. Of course there are some other interesting leaders that could come out of the deck, but those I might have to grab for two civil actions. I could also think about grabbing Ashoka plus a yellow card, because there is of course some danger that now one of my opponents will go for Sun Tzu and I could maybe get a little bit into trouble. So I could maybe rather go for Ashoka, already grab a yellow card, and then maybe go for Wanda at the next turn. But Hammurabi is just quite strong, and if I go for him, then I should definitely have a shot at getting the Colosseum at the next turn, and there's also still a shot that the pyramids might come out of the deck, so I hopefully will be able to go for one of those two wonders. DANeo goes for Ashoka, takes the Hanging Gardens and the Cultural Heritage, interestingly, so he takes the Hanging Gardens over the library. That of course allows him to also get a yellow card. Although maybe that yellow card is not even that important. Of course it's nice for Ashoka, but at the next turn he will have a free civil action anyway if he already has a leader and a wonder. But of course maybe there will be some early H1 cards, and then maybe he can elect Ashoka, already grab a card for 2, build a mine, and has already 4 resource production. So that's an interesting decision, and I mean he at least has this additional yellow card now. And the library will also be discarded, so I won't have a chance to take it. The Colosseum will be available, and also the pyramids will come out of the deck. DANeo goes for a mine, goes for Sun Tzu. He's the only leader available for him for one civil action, so I think it makes sense to go for him. He's also in first position, so maybe he can go for a little bit of military pressure. Then it's my turn. Of course I want to go for Hammurabi. I build a mine, I increase my population, and the main question here is what wonder do I want to grab. Of course I could also maybe go for no wonder, grab Court of Laws, but I don't think that would be a good thing to do here. I think I should go for one of those two wonders, and the question is, of course, which one should I go for? And of course, with Hammurabi, you could say the Colosseum is a nice synergy because you get an additional military action, and that definitely synergizes nicely in a way with Hammurabi, while the civil action of the pyramids is maybe not that great to have with Hammurabi because you already have an additional civil action, and then maybe getting even another one on top doesn't give as much value as if it would be your fifth civil action that you would get. So if you think about it like this, then you could say the Colosseum synergizes with Hammurabi, while the pyramids are not synergizing that nicely with Hammurabi. However, there's also another perspective, and that is that with Hammurabi, it is very nice to do a revolution to monarchy, or maybe even theocracy, but maybe in 3 and 4 player games mainly a monarchy. If that is a possibility at one of the early turns, then I very often like to go for that. And when I then go for this and have an H1 win form, then I think actually the pyramids should synergize better with the whole situation then. Because if I already have the monarchy, then I have my third military action, and all of a sudden the military action of the Colosseum, especially once Hammurabi will leave my civilization, is maybe not as much needed, and having an additional civil action from the pyramids might allow the monarchy to be a long-term solution. So from that perspective, the pyramids does in some ways synergize nicely with Hammurabi, and Colosseum has also a bit of downside, and also in general I just like the pyramids a lot more than the Colosseum. So even though maybe Colosseum has some synergies with Hammurabi, I was willing here to pay even an additional civil action for the pyramids, and because there is this thing with the monarchy, and if I have managed to get a monarchy revolution going, then I think from that time on, I definitely would prefer having the pyramids over the Colosseum. So, interesting decision. I am willing to pay an additional civil action here. I mean, I could only grab one of those HA yellow cards with the additional civil action anyway if I go for the Colosseum, and so I end up going for the pyramids here. Of course, I felt a little bit dangerous going for that against Sun Tzu. The additional military action, of course, could be very helpful, but I, at the end, was still willing to go for the pyramids. I draw one card, the Knowledge of the Ancients, so in case I really want to see it, I have an event now. Danny Boy builds a mine, increases his population, and he's willing to take the breakthrough for 2 civil action, doesn't want to spend a civil action taking one of those HA YOLO cards, and is willing to delay Ashoka for 1 more turn, but he wouldn't have given him any value this turn anyway. DANeo seeds, and the development of religion is revealed. I do have a free population, DANeo as well, I think Danny Boy as well, so we all can take the free religion. DANeo will take this early copy of Code of Laws, builds the second lab, and maybe if there's 2 resource development revealed, he can just finish the Rome roads, would then also get out of consumption again. At my turn, I thought it could be very nice to just get Joan of Arc. There is no early monarchy yet. And Joan of Arc, I have this free religion now, and I just thought it could be quite nice to have it in hand, because there's definitely still a chance that Daneo might go for some strength events, and if he then gets something like knights and a tactic, things could get a little bit dangerous in getting the additional strength, but also the military action from Joan of Arc whenever I want, I just thought could be quite nice, and also maybe there are not that many nice alternatives that I could take, but there are some more cards that I want to take. There are definitely still some interesting ones on the row. I could of course here just increase my population, build a second lab, and then I could maybe take one of those yellow cards, either Urban Growth or Frugality, but I thought it might be better to build one stage of the pyramids here, and then I will actually go for Urban Growth and the Frugality. With not building the lab, I can use the Urban Growth on it at the next turn in case there's some additional resource revealed from the developments. It might even allow me to finish pyramids at the next turn and go for the second lab, which might not be possible. If I build a lab now, I probably won't be able to finish the pyramids at the next turn. And I can now use this Urban Growth very nicely. If I already built a second lab, who knows how nicely I can use it, so I then maybe would have gone for Frugality. Like this, I also don't get into early consumption, especially now that the development of religion is already out. That is quite nice, and with the Frugality I will hopefully get a nice amount of population out, and that could potentially also be important in case this game gets a little bit military heavy. So, and getting both of those yellow cards for 1 civil action, with having Hammurabi and also getting the pyramids, I think is quite a nice deal. And so I was going for it like this, with starting to build the pyramids and delaying the second lab for at least 1 turn. I draw the raid. Danny Boy will go for Ashoka this turn, grabs the printing press and Eleanor, so he gets the full Ashoka bonus this turn, but he also spends some civil actions for that. He interestingly goes for the printing presses. There are no Shakespeare, but at least Darwin and Anthony Gaudi, so maybe he can potentially go for some of those culture leaders, and with the Hanging Gardens he might have some free population, so being able to put them into printing presses might be fine, but he will not get a lot of production now as only 4 civil actions, and he might get a bit of, or could get some corruption issues and might not have that many free civil actions at the following turn. DANeo seeds, and then the development of science is revealed. That allows him to go for the Code of Laws already this turn. He builds 2 stages of the Roman roads and then just grabs both of those rich lands, gets 4 resources for 2 civil actions, and those rich lands might also allow him to potentially go for some upgrades quicker, so that should be quite nice for him. This turn I might have a variety of options. I could finish the pyramids, I could also say I don't want to finish the pyramids, go for the lab, I could finish the pyramids, maybe grab the alchemy and then hope that I can maybe build a lab directly at the next turn, an H1 lab. So there are definitely some interesting options, but one main question that I probably have to answer is if it is still worth it to prepare for a monarchy revolution. So I was trying to see if I can maybe set a monarchy revolution up, because I really would like to get this monarchy going cheaply with having the pyramids. Then I would have a very nice civil and military action situation, actually 6 civil and 4 military actions once I go for Joan of Arc. That would be very strong, and so I kinda would like to go for the monarchy, and I also did find a nice way to set up for it. First of all, I will increase my population without the frugality, so that I hopefully won't have any corruption issues at the next turn. I could of course finish the pyramids and then maybe do a revolution to monarchy, but then the 1 additional civil action won't be used at the next turn anyway. And so instead I set up a turn where I grab the monarchy, I will build this second lab with the urban growth, and I will build 1 more stage of the pyramids. And that will allow me to do a revolution to the monarchy at the next turn. With the 1 free civil action I can then finish the pyramids, then I get a civil action, and I can do even 1 other thing, maybe increase my population in case there are some additional resources revealed and I have to get out of corruption. If not, I can maybe even take a card. So I thought like this I can very nicely set up for a monarchy revolution at the next turn, and then who knows, maybe in 2 turns I can maybe start going for iron or something like this. That could be interesting. The alchemy sadly will be gone, but hopefully I will still be able to go for some other stuff. The Silk Route could also be interesting with having that many civil actions, so yeah, I thought this could just with that I hopefully will put myself in a nice position, and I thought preparing for this might be better than maybe setting up for alchemy here. Then I draw the Rebellion. Danny Boy will go for printing presses this turn, and he can get out of corruption with building 1. Like this he gets the science production going. He will not get the food bonus from Ashoka this turn, but it's maybe not too bad. But maybe the next turn he again will have some issues to get out of corruption, so he is not the most flexible situation here, but maybe he can still set up something nice with having the Hanging Gardens and then maybe 2 printing presses or something like this. He grabbed Eleanor for 2, but Eleanor is quite a nice combination with Ashoka, because she is a nice transitional leader, and with having a green color card in hand, it's a lot easier to activate bonuses from Ashoka. DANeo opens the development of warfare. I think I have no free population, but DANeo is no as well. Danny Boy can potentially take the free warrior. DANeo will reveal the fighting band tactic this turn, so that might potentially get upgraded later on, but he won't elect Columbus yet. Maybe he has drawn a nice colony with the additional draws from Sun Tzu. He also goes for the monarchy, and then he will increase his population, and who knows, maybe he is even planning to do a revolution here, because after his turn, as we can see, he has no corruption. Of course he has already the Code of Laws, but I think a revolution could still potentially be interesting for him. And I think a revolution is also interesting for me here. Of course, there's again an alchemy. I could maybe do some different stuff, but I think this revolution will just be very, very nice. I can do the revolution, then I can finish the pyramids to get out of corruption, and I can also use the civil action from the pyramids immediately. And I can, with my last civil action, either increase my population with the frugality, that could be one option, or I could grab one of those cards. And I definitely considered multiple cards here, maybe just the frugality to potentially get even more population out. The alchemy could also be interesting, because who knows if I get this copy of iron, and then I might have something in hand to upgrade. And then also the theology could maybe be interesting with having Joan of Arc, and with maybe and then with just being able to upgrade this religion, maybe having more and more free population that I can put into military in case it will be needed. And I have a lot of civil action still. I won't Election of Arc this turn yet, because there's still 2 HA developments left. And so with Hammurabi I have a lot of civil actions. I came to the conclusion that I kind of want to grab a card here. Also both of Development of Warfare and Religion are already out, so having a free population doesn't really give a big benefit here. And at the end I went for the Theology. I just thought it synergized with Joan of Arc. It could potentially be nice to have one more free population available in case there is a strength race going on, and one reason for that was also this copy of Iron. I could of course take the Alchemy and then go for the Alchemy, but in general I thought that I rather will want to go for Iron in this situation, because it is a game where we have Ocean Liner Service and Harvard College in the mix. And I think then having some nice resource production when going into H2 could be quite strong, and if I then have some Iron set up and then either get an early Harvard or an early Ocean Liner Service, that could put myself in a very strong position. Well, then I go for Alchemy, it could also potentially work out nicely. There's also James Watt, and maybe I could go for Alchemy and for the Iron, but no. I thought that I maybe rather want to go for the Iron. However, if I take this Alchemy here, then one more card will be revealed, which means the Iron will fall down one more civil action, and I thought about what my opponents might do at the next turn, and I thought that if I take one of those cards, it might be more likely that the Iron will be on one civil action for DANeo. And maybe Danny Boy could potentially take the Iron anyway, but he has some stuff to do, and I thought that he won't take the Iron, but maybe he will take one card, for example the Swordsman or maybe the Engineering Genius, and then if I take the Alchemy now, the Iron could fall down for one civil action for DANeo. DANeo of course potentially might do a revolution anyway, but if there's an Iron available, maybe he could potentially still think about going for it, but if it is on 2, maybe it's more likely that he will do a revolution, and maybe it's then more likely that I will have a shot at getting the Iron, which in this situation I liked a lot more than going for the Alchemy. So that was the main reason why I at the end went for the Theology, because I just didn't want to let the Iron fall down even more. Danny Boy will finish the Hanging Gardens this turn. That is just enough to get him out of corruption, and then he will also take the Swordsman, and as we can see now, the Iron indeed will stay on 2 civil actions instead of falling down for 1 civil action for DANeo. DANeo will seed, and the Development of Planning is revealed with some interesting options, and sadly as we can see, DANeo will be taking the Iron, but another copy is coming down the row, so that's not too bad. The options are Development of Civil Life, Trade Routes and Settlements, so 3 very strong developments, and DANeo is choosing Development of Trade Routes here because that actually allows him to go for the Iron already this turn. Goes for 1 upgrade, but only for 1, because he also wants to have the Swordsman. That's now it's maybe even more likely that the Fighting Band indeed will be the upgraded tactic, and then having the Swordsman of course could be quite nice for DANeo. He also builds a Warrior to get a little bit stronger, so that could potentially indicate that there are some strength events coming, because so far DANeo is the only player who has pushed events. Now it's my turn. I will also take the Development of Trade Routes, because the Development of Trade Routes will allow me to go for 2 Iron upgrades. After this I still have 2 civil actions left. I thought about if I maybe want to go for the Silk Road. The Magic Castle I don't like too much here. I think the Silk Road would be better in this situation. But there are some very strong H2 wonders coming, so I rather want to have a free wonder slot available, but it's definitely something to think about here, the Silk Road. I could maybe also think about getting the Knights, but there's another copy coming, and I thought my opponents with the Fighting Man tactic very likely being upgraded won't contest the Knights too much. And so instead of going for the Silk Road, I at the end just first of all elected Joan of Arc, because at the next turn the Age could potentially end, but also the event deck will flip, so seeing what is on top might already be quite nice. And then I will just increase my population 2 times. I don't necessarily need any of those cards. I don't have the most signs, and so I just increase my population 2 times. Like this, there's also no danger that there will be rats revealed or something like this. And so I just spend my civil actions with increasing my population. I draw the Legion tactic, no Knights tactic, so that could potentially have been interesting, something like Medieval Army, but maybe I can also just go for Warriors and then go for the upgraded Fighting Band tactic. Danny Boy will elect Eleanor this turn, goes for 1 more Printing Press to get out of corruption, also gets even more science production going, and then also goes for some Swordsman, gets a little bit stronger, maybe doesn't want to be weakest so that he can seed at the next turn. with Eleanor, and then he also plays the Cultural Heritage before he will lose it to the end of the age. DANeo will seed, and with that we have the interesting situation that DANeo actually seeded all of the 5 H1 events, so he has the full knowledge, and I mean, that's definitely not bad, having full knowledge, having maybe put some nice events in there, so Sun Tzu has definitely given him something. The development of agriculture reveals even more food. He will indeed upgrade a fighting band tactic, then goes for 2 more iron upgrades, increases population, builds 1 more warrior, so he wants to make sure that he is in danger of getting weakest when I maybe get stronger and then he buys seeds, so that definitely is indicating that there are maybe some strength events in there. And then he also goes for the Taj Mahal, he can go for it for cheaper, builds 1 stage. He has a lot of resource production and maybe just needs something to invest into it, and yeah, like this, he goes for the Taj Mahal, which maybe takes the option away to go for Universitas at the next one, which maybe also could be interesting, but maybe also thought that I could maybe go for Universitas here, so instead he rather goes for the Taj Mahal. At this point, of course, I see what is on top, and on top there is indeed a strength event, the call to arms, and so I didn't really want to see it. I mean, I have a lot of civil actions, but I still didn't want to lose them in a trade for H1 cards, and so instead I offered a trade routes agreement to DANeo. I didn't really expect that this will be accepted, because it will be unlikely that being able to use resources, food, will actually allow him to get an additional population out, unless there are some events coming which might allow that. So I was still, and of course DANeo might get a colony, so I thought maybe there's a chance because he's just that much resource production, but he doesn't want to allow me to use food as resources here. And now, I kind of wanted to get stronger. Of course, I could also just upgrade my mine and use my resource like this, but I still thought it could be worth it to avoid the call to arms, maybe also making it that my opponents will lose some civil actions. For example, for Danny Boy, it could really hurt a lot more to lose those civil actions, and so I will go for those warriors, reveal the Legion tactic, meaning that I'm the strongest now, and I maybe can then copy the upgraded fighting band tactic at some point. I take the rich land, I will be able to use it for my last iron upgrade, then I also take the cultural heritage, and I definitely thought about the Universitas here. I can't finish the Universitas at the next turn though, and again there are some very interesting H2 wonders in the mix, and with that I didn't want to block myself from them, and instead of going for the Universitas I can also get science in a different way, just with grabbing the breakthrough, and like this I leave myself open for an H2 wonder. I also increase my population here, and with the last civil action I actually will grab the reserves. I don't grab the knights. There is still 1 copy coming, which I thought I hopefully will have a chance to get. At the moment I have no knights tactic anyway, there's also not really a big chance that one will be revealed, and I will also only draw 1 card, so I thought the knights are not that valuable for me anyway, and I rather wanted to have the reserves, because the reserves with 2 food might allow me to get an additional population out, and then maybe I can even build a theology at some point or something like this. Of course, I could have also thought about the Great Wall, and I think I also considered this option, and by both Great Wall and Universitas could definitely be very fine, but the same is true for Great Wall, as that if there would be an early Harvard or Ocean Liner service, I would be not happy about having the Great Wall, because I think an early Harvard College or an Ocean Liner service are just even quite a bit better, and so I didn't want to block myself here. Danny Boy has now made to make a decision if he is willing to cede, even though he is the weakest, and he is willing to cede. The call to arms is revealed. At least it somewhat synergizes with Eleanor, because he has no more cards to discard, but still I think he would have preferred to have the civil actions here. And no, he will grab the warfare, but to get out of corruption he has then to increase his population. He will build 1 more swordsman, but he doesn't seem to have a tactic, so he will stay at 6 strength, which could be nice for me. Then DANeo will go for Columbus immediately, and he has the vast territory, so that is very strong for him. And then he will also make sure to get stronger again, goes up to 8 strength, increases population again, builds an additional farm interestingly, goes for the irrigation. Maybe he wants to go for 3 irrigations at some point, or at least he has this option now. And then it is my turn. Again I see what is on top, and what is on top is actually quite nice for me, so I make the decision to cede here. Actually the pestilence, which of course could potentially be a bit bad. I don't have the most free population, but I will actually get some food from the event, because on top is the foray. And so I was willing to see the Pestilence. The Knowledge of the Ancients could maybe be nice. I don't have the most science production yet, but I already have a government form, so I thought it might still be more helpful for my opponents, the science and the rebellion. I thought my opponents at the moment are relatively nicely prepared for that, and I don't want to be forced to go for theology unnecessarily, so I just seeded a Pestilence here. I wanted to open the foray. And I have a lot of options this turn, because there are a lot of cards that I maybe could grab. I go for the Code of Laws here, making my Monarchy maybe even more valuable as a long-term solution. And yeah, but there's also selective breeding that I could take, which maybe might not be as great in case I still get an ocean liner service, but of course I don't know if I get an early ocean liner service, and then with both of my opponents not having committed to irrigation yet, it could still be nice to have the selective breeding. There's also this early scientific method on the row, which I definitely consider taking. I can maybe go for it. There is no Newton sadly, but still it could be very strong, and there are some lab leaders in H3. And there is also this copy of Rifleman with being heavily on infantry units and with maybe staying on the upgraded fighting band tactic for some time. Could be quite nice. I could even consider going for Rifleman, making sure that I'm the strongest, but some of the strength events are already out, so maybe I shouldn't focus too much on that. So there are a lot of interesting cards that I could take, and I made a decision here to go for the Code of Laws, having even more civil actions. And to be honest, this turn is already, or the turns in general are already a while ago, and with having that many options, I don't remember every detail of my decision making of this turn. But a Code of Laws will just give me even more civil actions in case I do want to go for an H2 wonder. That might make it even more easy for me. And then I will increase my population, making sure that I'm not in danger of rats and that I'm nicely prepared for the Pestilence. I will grab the selective breeding, and I will also grab the Knights. Interestingly, I could have also grabbed the Breakthrough, but the Rifleman and Cannon might be taken, and I just felt it is a little bit dangerous to not have any military technology, but I think this Breakthrough could actually be quite strong. So I'm not sure about it, but then I would miss out on this upgrade, which maybe also could be nice. And now I have my resource production fully upgraded. Also with having that many civil actions now, I even have a chance to maybe take and finish a wonder. If Ocean Liner Service is, for example, on 2 civil actions, I could now take and finish it. In Harvard College I could now even take and finish if it is in 3 civil actions. So I think that was part of my reasoning to go for the additional civil action, and that might potentially also be part of my reasoning why I want to go for this upgrade now, because in case I indeed want to go for taking and finishing a wonder the next turn, maybe I don't have an additional civil action, so if I don't go for this upgrade now, I might even not be able to go for that the next turn potentially. However, the Breakthrough could still be nice, but it might also not be too bad to at least have one military technology in hand. But with having nice resource production, I might prefer the Cavalryman anyway, so I'm not certain if I should really grab those Knights, or if I maybe even could just consider the Urban Growth, or maybe just playing Cultural Heritage. So there are really a lot of options and a lot of different variations that I could go for this turn, and I don't remember exactly what my reasoning was at this turn, but at least I have those Knights in hand now. But also the Rifleman, also the Scientific Method, all of those cards could potentially be interesting. But like this, I have my Food Solution, and with the Pestilence coming, that might be nice. And so I think it's definitely a decent turn, but there are definitely that many options that maybe I could do something differently here. I will use my 1 free civil military actions and also one of my not free military actions to copy to the fighting band tactic this turn. I will be the weakest after my turn, so that's a bit of a downside, but I wasn't really willing to go for Rifleman just for that, especially now that already some strength events have been out, and luckily there's also no strength event revealed now. The Historic Territory is revealed. I was willing to bid 1 warrior for that, but DANeo is able to win it, and he also only has to pay 1 warrior. Danny Boy goes for the Scientific Method. I was happy to see it, because one thing that I didn't like was that if I leave Scientific Methods in the row, that might be a very interesting card for DANeo. And I thought that Danny Boy maybe doesn't take it because he has printing presses, but he still takes it, and it might still be a nice card for him. But I thought it's maybe not that great for him. It would be great for DANeo, so I was just happy to see that he takes it here. Then he also takes the Breakthrough and the cartography. Interestingly, there is cartography and the navigation on the row, but he goes for the cartography. Maybe he did some calculations on how he wants to use the science, and actually we can maybe also already see it on the row, because for example, if he should get his hands on this early Conmon, or maybe another government form that will be revealed, he has a full hand now, and if he now develops cartography with the breakthrough, he has still 13 science left. With the navigation, he only would have 11 science left, so maybe that might be part of the reasoning to go for the cartography instead of the navigation here. Now it's DANeo's turn. He is the weakest and he is willing to see it, and with him having full knowledge about this event deck, I definitely expected no more strength events. The new deposits are revealed, which give DANeo and me some additional resources, or more resources. Danny Boy, of course, also gains 3 additional resources. Danny will finish the Taj Mahal, and I was really hoping that he doesn't go for the Harvard College here, because that will be a very nice wonder for me at my turn. And that would mean corruption for him, and he also would miss out on some military technology, so at the end he isn't willing to go for it. Might also be the best decision for him, but I was still happy, so maybe he could have thought about denying it, but then he also could get in trouble with not having any military technologies, so it would maybe be a bit of a greedy decision for him. And maybe he takes it away as a bit of a hate draft, and then there's an early ocean liner service revealed. So yeah, that of course can always backfire to going for a hate draft. But of course it would also be a nice wonder for himself. This turn, the event on top is actually relatively fine for me, I think, if I remember it correctly, because on top are the barbarians, and I don't have the most culture, and I could make it that Danny Boy lose a population. But again, with my opponent still having to go for government form, I didn't really want to put the knowledge of the ancients into the deck, especially now that I will get some additional science production from Harvard, and I also didn't want to have the rebellion, so I just offered a scientific cooperation to DANeo. At the moment I don't have the most science production, not a lot of science saved up. DANeo has some technologies in hand that he maybe wants to go for, so I thought maybe there's a chance that he will accept it, but maybe he is afraid that when I go for Harvard College I might at the end get more out of it. If I would have gotten the pact, I think I would have now gone for the architecture and then finished the Harvard College, and then I would have still 1 civil action left at deck, then could maybe use to take the strategy. However, now if I want to go for the architecture, I have to play the cultural heritage, and then I would have no civil actions left after finishing the Harvard College. I still considered it. I didn't build any urban buildings yet, so the architecture might definitely save me a lot of resources. Maybe you remember that game from the stage. I think it was the 3-player game against Vaika and DANeo, where the architecture saved me something like 20 resources. So it could definitely be nice to go for the architecture here, but the strategy could also be interesting, and I didn't want to miss out on the strategy here. I thought it could maybe open up some doors for potential aggressive play later on to maybe convert my economy like this. And so I finished the Harvard College here, and then I have still 2 civil actions. I take the strategy, and I can also take the urban growth, so I would miss out on both of those cards if I go for the architecture, and the urban growth is also just a very nice deal to get for 1 civil action, especially with me still needing some urban buildings. Definitely need a happy face solution at some point, so I rather went for this turn, and I was very happy to get the Harvard College here. I think that definitely improves my position by quite a lot. Then I end my turn. I do draw some tactics now, which could potentially be interesting. Danny Boy seeds, the barbarians are revealed, and yeah, he has the most culture, and he's also among the 2 weakest, so that's annoying for him. He will lose a population, even though he's not the weakest now. Now that he seeds at his turn, he has no free population now. He will go for the cartography, and now he can still go for the constitutional monarchy, so we can see here why the cartography maybe was the better pick than the navigation. And then he has some issues to get out of corruption. He has to destroy something for that. He destroys the religion. At the moment, thanks to the Hanging Garden, still enough happy faces available. And then he will build another library to get more science production going, and takes the cavalryman. And also this turn copies the tactic, which makes him even the strongest now. Then DANeo goes for the monarchy, interestingly. He can go for it peacefully this turn. He could have also grabbed one of those government forms, but maybe it wasn't that easily possible, and maybe he just didn't feel like he has enough science to go for that, and maybe also didn't see a nice way to set up a revolution. So he just goes for the monarchy here. He then also goes for the Eiffel Tower. He still has a lot of resources, needs to invest those resources somehow. Also builds an additional lab this turn. Maybe that could allow him to go for something like scientific method, or maybe also military technology at the next turn. But he also can maybe just finish the Eiffel Tower to invest his resource and maybe put a little bit of pressure with the culture production. Maybe catch up to Danny Boy, getting a lead against me, especially at the end of H2. Rome Roads will also switch to culture production, and then his wonders will actually produce 9 culture. So that definitely could be then quite a benefit in H3. This turn I do see the rebellion, but now I will have some more time to prepare for it, and I definitely at some point want to go for some happy face. So I was hoping that this won't cause any issues for me, and I just wanted to seed. The Pestilence is not on top, this one event that I seeded, instead the Inhabited Territory, and I thought that this turn it could be nice if it is revealed now, because then I can rebuild at my turn, and I can also use this colony to go for transition, maybe to this mobile artillery. I don't have the cannons yet, so that is a little bit risky, but it could still work out quite nice at the end. And so I was willing to seed, and I actually was willing to go all in here. I win it for 6, which means that I actually have to send away everything. So that is definitely quite costly, but if it allows me to make a smooth transition, if I get those cannons, then that might definitely be worth it. And I also have some more yellow tokens now, so I overall was happy about it. I then need to make space in my hand. For that I play the reserves for resources. I will need those resources this turn. And then I will take this breakthrough that I want to use this breakthrough this turn, that then will allow me to go for the selective breeding. We're also still having enough science to go for the cavalryman, and thanks to playing the reserves I could of course also play the cultural heritage to achieve that, but then I would miss some resources. So like this I can take the breakthrough on civil action, which is nice, and I can go for the selective breeding and the cavalryman. Of course I could also go for the knights, but I have a bunch of resources, and the cavalryman would also prepare me for H3 tactics, so I rather want to go for cavalryman. The knights here I can build 2 cavalrymen. I also thought about only building 1, then I can go for 2 food upgrades. But then I would be a little bit in danger of getting hit by an aggression from Danny Boy, and I was quite happy about my position in general, so I wasn't willing to take any risks here. And I go for 2 cavalrymen, and also with the additional yellow tokens, I maybe don't necessarily need to rush out both of upgrades. Even if I only go for 1 upgrade, I still get an additional population out, and then I maybe can just go for the upgrade at the next turn. But I still want to at least go for 1 upgrade, and with my last civil action I then grabbed the opera. I could also just play the cultural heritage, but I thought the opera might be nice to have. Maybe it could allow me to go for Antoni Gaudi, even though I wasn't too certain if I will have a chance to get him. Maybe Danny Boy could go for him, DANeo also could go for him, and maybe he could also be discarded before my turn. But if he is still available, it could be nice to have the opera. And also in H3 there are Marlene Dietrich and Chaplin, so I just set myself up for some more leaders. I have a way to maybe get a bit of culture reduction in case I need it, so I think that is a nice deal to get for one civil action. Now that I have get rid of all of those warriors, I actually discard the Napoleonic army, because now I think if I get cannons I definitely want to go for mobile artillery. I draw some events that I can seed. I stay the weakest, but I know that the next event will be the Pestilence. Danny Boy seeds, and the Pestilence is revealed, and this Pestilence at the end worked out quite nicely. I have a free population. Danny Boy has will lose a mine this turn because of it, and Danny also has to destroy something. So just with having the knowledge about it, I was able to prepare for it. Danny Boy will go for the coal this turn. Could maybe think about James Watt, but he also maybe can have hope to still get James Watt at the next turn, and so he just grabbed some cards. Maybe he didn't want to grab those Ridgelands of efficient upgrades. Of course those could be interesting for him, but maybe he was afraid that James Watt might be discarded then, which definitely could be the case if Daneo maybe just goes for Antoni Gaudi plus 1 yellow card. So I think him grabbing the patriotism might be the reason for that might be that he wants to have bigger chance to get James Watt at the next turn. James Watt definitely might help Danny Boy to come back into this game. And now, at the moment he has corruption, he has only 2 production, so that's not great. But if he should get James Watt, he maybe has a way to get relatively quickly still a nice economy going. I am still the weakest. I was afraid of this H2 event. Luckily it is no strength event, instead it is a colony. Now that I have sent that much away, I can't be that much. I was actually willing to bid 2 cavalrymen, but I wasn't really hoping to win it. I just wanted to make sure that none of my opponents wins it for too cheaply. And if I should win it, I thought that I maybe can still handle the situation. And so but I don't win it, and any boy is able to win it, but at least he has to send away 2 swordsmen. Then he will go for Anthony Gaudi, he will elect him, he will finish the Eiffel Tower, and he will grab 1 yellow card. And even if he grabs one of those cards, it would not be enough to make James Watt discarded. He just grabs 1 rich land, and now with Anthony Gaudi and the Eiffel Tower, he's now 10 culture reduction, and with that he might be able to get a bit of a lead at some point. Also means that Anthony Gaudi isn't available for me. I again offer the scientific cooperation because on top I can see that I actually was quite lucky when DANeo seeded, because on top are actually the refugees, so there is quite a bad strength events waiting in the deck, and luckily it wasn't revealed as first event, so now I still have a chance to prepare for it. And we can see that Joan of Arc's knowledge definitely has already benefited me a little bit in this game. And now I again offer the scientific cooperation, this time to Danny Boy. Again, I was thinking that there's maybe a chance that he would accept it, because he can develop coal and selective breeding relatively cheaply if he gets James Watt. Maybe he was afraid that I could potentially hate draft, but he also maybe can go for scientific method. Cavalryman at some point, he just has already a lot of technologies in hand, so I was thinking that maybe he could go for those, but of course with the Harvard College and with having that many civil actions long term, I might have just better chances to get more out of this pact, so he also rejects it. I played a cultural heritage this turn. I want to get stronger, so I go for the strategy, which puts me at 10 strength. Then I grab the efficient upgrade, which I can use immediately to go for 1 cheap upgrade to my farms. And then there are some interesting yellow cards that I could take. I could potentially take, for example, Revolutionary Idea and reserves. But I was thinking that I didn't want to spend all of my civil actions here to only take yellow cards, because at the next turn I kinda wanted to be prepared to grab cannons even for 3 civil actions, and I didn't only want to grab them, I also wanted to be prepared to maybe build 2 of them, and in case maybe I should draw an H2 war, then I have quite some potential and could maybe go for a relatively big war, or also maybe if I don't get a war, maybe just set myself up for an aggression. I have at least this H2 raid in hand, so I wanted to already spend 1 civil action to increase my population so that I can pull this off more easily in case the cannons should be available for me at the next turn. But then the question is, what cards do I want to take? I could maybe take reserves and the engineering genius, but if I go for cannons at the next turn, I will be relatively low on science, and I just thought that just having the option to get a bit more science at some point might be very valuable for me, and so I at the end was willing to grab the Revolutionary Idea over taking those 2 yellow cards. But for the engineering genius, you never know, the ocean liner service would be quite late. I have a nice yellow bank and I already 2 farm upgrades, so I would probably use it for H3 wonders, and then you never know if there will even be a nice shot for it. So I was with that willing to grab the Revolutionary Idea, and I also increased my population. I could of course also think about something completely different, maybe even going for Gremlin or something like this, but I think having the plan to go for the cannons might be very nice, and then the Gremlin might just distract me from that. So I just go for this turn, and was really hoping that I maybe have a shot of getting the cannons at the next turn. Now Danny Boy will get James Watt, which will be very helpful for him, but I wasn't willing to do a hate draft here. I have an interesting draw. I actually sadly don't draw any wars, but I mean, who knows? If there's another colony coming, those colonization cards might be quite valuable. The vast territory is already out, but I don't want to be unhappy about it, because it could have been the refugees instead, so that is still perfectly fine. Danny Boy plays the patriotism. He has to make space in his hand somehow, and he also has to rebuild some units after having won the vast territory. And now he can go for James Watt, and also the additional civil actions from Eleanor are quite helpful for him here. That allows him to go for 2 upgrades, and then he still has 2 civil actions, can increase his population, grabs the engineering genius at the next turn. Maybe he can go for selective breeding, maybe even the ocean liner service could be an option, and then he might still be able to get some economy going. He has at the moment a bit of a culture lead. Then you might catch up to him relatively quickly, but he might still get a relatively decent position now. He had maybe some issues over the game, with maybe was not being that flexible in H1 and then having some issues, especially after losing the population to the barbarians. Had to do maybe some a bit awkward turns, but now with James Watt he might be able to catch up and improve his position by quite a lot. DANeo seeds and the refugees are revealed, so I'm able to win. And Danny Boy loses population, so that of course is again not great for him and hurts him quite a bit, and I was just very happy that I'm able to win those refugees. There still is no copy of cannons in the row. DANeo goes for some upgrades, has now some night food production going, doesn't want to wait for the second copy of selective breeding. Actually there is no second copy, he only could go for the Oceanliner service, so he has to go for those farms. And he also grabs the journalism, which could be nice with Anthony Gaudi, and also the organized religion to have a happy face solution in hand. This turn I of course see again what is on top, and to figure out if I want to seed, I had to first figure out what my turn looks like exactly. Because on top is actually the iconoclasm, and if I open it, of course, I will lose one civil action, so I had to make sure how valuable the civil action would be for me. And I definitely could do something with it, but I was willing to miss out on it just in order to get this international negotiations into the next stack. I was still hoping that I will get one copy of cannons. Danny Boy has some stuff to do, maybe even if the cannons would be revealed on his turn, he won't grab them. DANeo as well, he actually has, there's actually only one copy of cannons left. So there is definitely a bit of danger that Danny Boy could, maybe if those are revealed after my turn, could take those away. So it's maybe also a little bit risky to see the strength event. Yeah. I still had some hopes that I have a better chance to get it. I will only take 3 cards this turn, so the chances are higher that the cannons aren't revealed. And even if those are revealed, I was hoping that maybe there's a chance that anybody won't grab those cannons. And with that I was willing to seed. I could of course also not seed, maybe hope that the iconoclasm is revealed in H2. I could maybe just take Catherine in hand, but it's not really an option I think, because one of my opponents will have knowledge about this and then can just reveal it before we hit H2. And I could of course also elect Catherine and then it could be revealed and I don't lose a civil action, but as I said, I was willing to lose the civil action this turn. I will go for Catherine this turn. Of course I could also do some different options. I could think about going for Nobel, I could think about waiting for Nobel, I could think about waiting for Maria. I think Maria could be quite strong for me here. But Catherine is available now, she is available for one civil action. I can spend my civil actions for electing a leader now, meaning that I have more civil actions available at the next turn, and I hopefully then will be able to go for cannons, and maybe also the first H3 cards might be available. So I think just spending the civil actions to get a leader this turn is just already a benefit on its own. And also I thought Catherine might be quite fine, maybe I will be able to steal the yellow token, and also I maybe will also be able to use the military action quite nicely, because in case I will get the cannons, I definitely have some very nice strength potential. Both of my opponents could get some issues, they still have some issues, so I thought then it could be quite nice to have the additional military action. Maybe it will mean getting additional draws in, and so I thought Catherine might be quite a fine leader for me here. I elect her. I also go for the team sports this turn. On top there is the rebellion, so I don't want to be in any danger that I get hit by it. And like this I can also then increase my population, which could help me to get out of corruption. And then the question was what to do with my last civil action. I could already build another cavalryman, but planning to go for the mobile artillery, I wasn't too happy about it. Of course I might still need it if I maybe go for 3 tactics at some point, but maybe I don't go for 3 tactics, especially if I, for example, get early air forces, or if I draw the mechanized army tactic. I could maybe also already build another team sports, but it just didn't feel too great. Maybe there's an early PR and I get rewarded for it, but I thought having this additional mine might be quite nice. It helps me getting out of corruption, and I also thought that I still have enough population to work with to go for some military pressure. I will get another one out at the next turn, and then I can go for 2 armies, and I was just hoping that I can support this mine, and then it maybe can still give me some value over the last turns of the game. And with if I wouldn't have seeded and if I would have an additional civil action now, I could have maybe taken this urban growth, so or maybe played the revolutionary radius. So there are definitely some decent uses for the civil action. But I didn't really want to take the urban growth, because I would then one more card would be revealed, and it could be quite important for me to get a cannon, so I didn't necessarily want to give Danny Boy more cards. And yeah, and of course playing the Revolutionary, it could be quite nice to already have done it, but I was hoping that I will still be fine. I have already 6 signs, so I don't need to play to get the cannons going at the next turn. I could have thought about going for Organized Religion instead of Team Sports, but with Bear being in the game, I thought that I rather would prefer the Team Sports here. Those give me also some additional strength, and with maybe planning to go for some military, I can maybe use also the strength of the Team Sports quite nicely. Keep the tactic, 1 event, 1 aggression, and the colonization cards. Still no war, but even more aggressions, so I still have some potential in case I get cannons. Sadly, the cannons are revealed now, and now, of course, I was very excited to see if Danny Boy will take those cannons or not. First of all, he will increase his population for 2 food. He will go for 1 more upgrade with James Watt, or he actually is, it's not an upgrade, he even builds an additional mine. Is now at 9 resource production. Goes for the Ocean Liner Service, goes for the Organized Religion, and uses the Engineering Genius to already start working on the Ocean Liner Service, so he doesn't want to go for selective breeding, or maybe still wants to go for it, but he also wants to have the Ocean Liner Service on top. He has the Engineering Genius, so then the Ocean Liner Service is of course relatively cheap, and maybe he also can spend his science on something different than the selective breeding, but he doesn't take the cannons, and I was very, very happy to see it. Maybe he has a tactic where he doesn't need cannons, or maybe he just wasn't willing to pay that many civil actions. And but I was just happy that now I finally know that I will be able to get those cannons, and that could potentially allow me to go for some military pressure from now on. DANeo offers the international trade agreement to Danny Boy. He will get additional resource production, Danny Boy additional food production, Danny Boy will accept it. And DANeo interestingly goes for journalism here, goes for even more culture production, will also increase the science production, but he won't go for any military technology this turn, which maybe puts him a little bit in a vulnerable position, because he doesn't have that many military actions, so he maybe has some problems building up some military very quickly. So maybe it's a little bit greedy, but DANeo plays a lot of 2-player games, so he maybe just likes it to play it a little bit greedily with having this 2-player mindset, and then he also upgrades 1 more farm. He will grab the wave of nationalism and also the scientific method, which he can develop relatively cheaply with Anthony Gaudi, maybe building up an even stronger economy. And the wave of nationalism, of course, might also be quite a helpful card for him to build up his military. This turn I could potentially see the emigration, but I think it's just best to use the Catherine bonus this turn. Stealing yellow tokens from both opponents should be quite nice, and this turn I can go for the cannons. I also want to get a frugality that might allow me to get, or that will allow me to get even another population out at the next turn, maybe allowing me to go for yet another tactic. Potentially, and I just go for 2 cannons, reveal the mobile artillery tactic. We can also already see that the military action of Catherine is quite nice to have. Now I can go for this pressure while still drawing 3 cards, and at the next turn I maybe can go for one of those aggressions, and who knows, I get 3 draws, maybe there could also be already a war that I potentially could go for. I was of course hoping to get some wars in this situation, because I think both of my opponents have some trouble building up enough military in this situation here, but maybe just going for one of those aggressions could also be quite nice. Now I have 2 civil actions left, and I just use those to increase my population to play the revolutionary idea. I could maybe think about grabbing the journalism, but I already have the opera in hand. Maybe the multimedia could potentially be nicer for me, and I also thought that maybe I want to go for some military pressure potentially, even if I shouldn't draw a war immediately. And so I just used all of my civil actions quite efficiently. I thought about the rifleman. Maybe it could allow Danny Boy to go for an H3 tactic at some point if he grabs it, but yeah, maybe he also doesn't really need it, and I also could of course allow me to go for Modern Army, but I thought about it, but at the end I wasn't willing to pick it here. I just keep all of the aggressions and discard the events, and Vlada definitely blesses me here with already 2 wars in the first 3 draws, so that is definitely quite nice to have, and with that I was a lot more confident about my position, because when we take a look at the overview, DANeo is definitely running a bit away with the culture, and if I don't get a lot of wars, only get one war relatively late. Maybe it could get a little bit tricky. Of course, I still have a nice economy. Maybe I could still do some different stuff than going for military, and maybe just pulling some aggressions off could also already do some damage. But now, that's just very great to have those wars and to be able to plan already with 2 wars now. So that is definitely a very nice and lucky draw here. DANeo seats and the rebellion is revealed, and no one gets hit by that. He will finish the ocean liner service, increases his population, takes the efficient upgrade, and develops the selective breeding, so maybe still wants to go for those cheap upgrades with James Watt. Then a DANeo seats and a prosperity is revealed, some additional food for everyone, and DANeo will increase his population. He of course sees now that maybe he's a little bit in trouble, increases his population 2 times, and then builds, or maybe even 3 times I think, and then builds 2 cannons, takes the military theory. He doesn't reveal any tactic yet, maybe doesn't want to show what he has, maybe just wants to get 1 draw in. Yeah, but it's interesting that he doesn't reveal any tactic yet. And yeah, then that is the end of his turn. He gets the military theory, which at some point will very likely be helpful for him to defend himself. And the question is, of course, do I want to go for a war immediately? And with having 2 in hand, I thought, yes, I want to go for a war immediately. With only having 1 in hand, maybe I would have waited a bit with the hope that I can maybe build up an even bigger military lead over the next turns. But yeah, with having 2 wars in hand, I wanted to go for a war already this turn, disrupt my opponents, or the opponent that I will go against, which will be DANeo, because he is definitely running away with the culture at the moment, and I think I have to go against him here, even though he's maybe a bit more potential, depending on what tactic he has. He didn't reveal anything, which left me a little bit suspicious that maybe he's only bluffing a tactic. And DANeo could maybe have classic army. He didn't go for the cannons earlier, so potentially the war could be bigger against DANeo. But I just thought I have to hit DANeo, I have to disrupt him. The good thing with going against DANeo is that DANeo, if he, for his defense, he can just get population out, and DANeo maybe has to destroy something in case he wants to build more military. So I just thought this war might be more disrupting for DANeo, but potentially I might be able to steal more culture from DANeo, but with DANeo running away with the culture and with it maybe disrupting him more, I choose him as the war target. I increase my population, I build 1 cannon, 1 cavalryman. Potentially I could even think about now going for engineering, and then I could even build team sports in addition to that, but I just think I will need my science for something else, especially air forces, but maybe also some different stuff, because I will grab both of those reserves. I just want to have as many resources for the military available as possible, but also being able to play those for food might of course be quite helpful, taking some also a lot of resource away from my opponents to maybe help building more military. And I also grabbed a fundamentalism here. There's also a democracy, but with having another war in hand, with having all of those aggressions in hand, I thought a fundamentalism might be just nice to get at some point, maybe especially if I get no air forces. But maybe I can also, if there are not the most important cards at the next turn on the road, maybe just do revolution to fundamentalism. It could maybe also be interesting, and then I would still have enough science to go for air force at the following turn. So I just felt that fundamentalism is the better card for me here than the democracy. And then I just increased my population with the last civil action. To make a decision what aggressions I want to keep, and I thought I want to keep the raid, because it might give me a lot of resource and has some nice potential against DANeo, and the infiltrators also just in general a lot of potential. DANeo maybe wants to replace James Watt relatively quickly, maybe I can also infiltrate Anthony Gaudi, but especially if maybe one of my opponents goes for an H3 leader or an H3 wonder, then the infiltrate has just a very big potential. DANeo will go for cavalryman this turn. He builds 1, he builds another one, and he will reveal the classic army tactic. Is now 19 strength, so he has this tactic available. He goes for Einstein, goes for 1 food upgrade, and then switches to Einstein, which of course makes him a very attractive target for my infiltrate now. That would be very annoying for him going for Einstein and then getting infiltrated, playing the whole H3 without a leader basically. Then DANeo will see it. Maybe there could be a helpful event, but it's actually rather a disruptive event. Or it doesn't disrupt him for this turn, but will be annoying for the next, because he pays 3 food for me, he wouldn't be able to increase his population anyway, but now he also won't be able to increase his population even at the next turn. He is willing to destroy something, plays the wave for 6 resources, goes for 1 cannon, builds even another cannon, is now at 20 strength, and he will have the fortifications tactic, just wasn't willing to reveal it at a turn before. Is now at 26 strength, so he is definitely able to pull up a relatively nice defense, but he has still an uprising issue. Now he can't delete a warrior, and also is missing 1 resource to pay for an upgrade to organized religion, so he has to destroy 1 more stuff, and he is then willing to destroy 1 farm with not getting a population out at the next turn anyway, but it's definitely costly, definitely disrupts him, so I think this war still worked out relatively well. Now I have won the first war. The question is, of course, do I want to go for second war immediately? But I didn't really, because then I maybe would go for another mobile artillery army, but that would maybe be bad if I get air forces. Then I maybe rather just want to have those 3 armies that I have at the moment and go for air forces on top. And I also have some interesting aggressions in hand, so I rather thought that I want to go for an aggression here. The question is, of course, which aggression I want to go for, and as you can see, I end up going for the raid against DANeo, but it actually was a close decision. I will destroy journalism and the religion, so that's definitely hurtful for DANeo. So it was definitely very tempting to play this infiltrate against Danny Boy and remove his Einstein before he maybe gets multimedia going, gets a nice science bonus and also some culture. Of course, nice to remove him now. But the raid also hurts DANeo quite a bit, and even after this first war, I still thought DANeo is maybe a bit in a more dangerous position. He still has the culture lead, and if he has still journalism and religion, he would have 5 more culture production, still better science production. I can also use the resource quite nicely, but actually one of the main reasons to go for the raid was how nicely those opponents can prepare for an aggression at the following turn. Because I was actually quite confident or hopeful that I still have a shot to play this infiltrate at the next turn against Danny Boy, because he can't really increase his strength by that much. And I will still have a big lead, and hopefully I then can go for the infiltrate at the next turn. Of course, he could maybe get a second copy of military theory or air forces, and then maybe he could set himself up for defense, but at least then he doesn't go for multimedia, meaning he doesn't get as much science out of Einstein, so Einstein maybe then would not be as great, but of course it still would be very nice for him to keep Einstein, but I was hoping that maybe there's no Air Force or military theory revealed, and if this is the case, then I thought I should have good chances to play the infiltrator the next turn still against Danny Boy, while DANeo at the moment has only those 2 cards in hand, and aggression now was guaranteed against him, but he's just enough science to go for the military theory, for example, at the next turn, so I thought that at the next turn he might prepare himself for the military, and then I won't have another shot at getting an aggression off. And so with me thinking that DANeo maybe is still a bit of a better position even after this war, and with the hope that I can still go for the infiltrate against Danny Boy the next turn, I went for the raid against DANeo. And the raid allows me to go for this multimedia without having to play any of those reserves, which is quite nice. I still have a war in hand, so of course I could still go for more military, but as I said, I don't necessarily want to build more of those armies. If I don't get any air forces, then maybe it could be better to not go for war anyway, or maybe there's a shot that my opponents will be able to set themselves up nicely enough. So I just wanted to get the multimedia going to also still have some peaceful options. I am not that much behind in culture, so I maybe still have a shot to just win this game without any wars from now on, and just maybe some aggressions. And also building this multimedia doesn't prevent me from going for big wars still if I should get the air forces. So I can go for the multimedia, and hopefully we should still be able to get some nice wars off. Maybe not at the next turn, but there's still some turns left, so I could be able to, if I get air forces, maybe set myself up for a nice war. And the multimedia just gives me a lot of value, prepares me nicely for a lot of impacts, and so I was willing to go for that here. I also was willing to grab the reserves for 3 civil actions. Of course, there's some other yellow cards available for cheaper, but in this situation I still thought every yellow card that can be used for the military is a lot more important here, also to take it away from the opponents. I still was hoping to get air forces, or maybe also being able to pull off a war without air forces, maybe with going for fundamentalism, or maybe with drawing mechanized army. And so I was willing to pay 3 civil actions for the reserves. I could potentially think about getting one of those cards, but I don't really need the tanks. Don't really need the professional sports, the efficient upgrade as well. So I just played the reserves for food. Now I can increase my population 2 times at the next turn. Oh no, even, no, now I can increase it 2 times, and also when I increase it 2 times I will have 2 food left, meaning I can increase it another time, so I think playing that for 3 just works out very nicely, and also doesn't mean I have corruption, and I still have those 2 reserves in hand that I can maybe play for resources in case I want to build a lot of military. I don't draw another war yet, also no mechanized army tactic, but the impact of science could be quite a nice impact. So in case I still go for a peaceful variation, that could be quite a nice impact to play. And maybe even if I go for wars with having this multimedia, the civil unrest is revealed. And now this raid even hurts DANeo even more because he lost 1 religion and with that loses now even 4 more culture from the civil unrest that is revealed by DANieboy. There's no air force or military theory available for DANieboy. He will go for the multimedia, so of course Einstein is giving him some nice value. This turn he also is going for the internet and another efficient upgrade. But I was hoping that I will have a shot now again to remove his Einstein at my next turn. He will however build 1 swordsman interestingly, maybe just use the free military action, but I also thought maybe he's doing it to have a bit of a better shot to defend against an aggression. If he has already some aggressions in hand, then maybe this swordsman could potentially help him. For example, if he has 2 H3 and 1 H2 defense card, he could defend for plus 17, and that would now be enough to defend. Without the swordsman it wouldn't be. So if he has already 1 H2 and 1 H3 card, then maybe, or even of course if he has both of those cards, then it's even better, but also if he doesn't have the cards yet, it just gives him maybe a chance to not get hit by an aggression, even if I should try to go for 1. DANeo has just lost his journalism, which is of course not great for him. He rebuilds it, so he is willing to rebuild it. Definitely gives him some value, but maybe he can also miss the resources at some point in the military. He's then can disband a warrior, still draw some cards thanks to having the military theory. He will get the revolutionary idea and also the pro sports. And now he looks like he can very likely defend against aggression, or he's actually guaranteed to defend. But DANieboy is still looking very vulnerable. He might have a shot at defending, so he could maybe also play an impact of science. And but yeah, I thought now it's the time to try it. That would do a lot of damage to DANieboy. I gain 9 culture out of it, so I think it's worth a shot. So I go for the infiltrate, and it is actually successful. I even have a choice now, because DANieboy also went for the internet, so he could also remove the internet, but Einstein is giving him some value anyway, and the internet, he has to invest some resources into it, and with losing Einstein, who also gives a bit more culture for the internet, maybe the internet won't be that great anyway. He would have to invest a lot to make it really big, and with me seeing those air forces and with still having 1 war, I thought he might be concerned about some other stuff than just building up for a bigger internet, so I rather removed Einstein here than the internet, and I gain 9 additional culture, so that is quite nice and definitely very hurtful for DANieboy, who will now play without a leader for the rest of the game. I definitely grab those air forces, and yeah, but I don't want to go for a war this turn, it just wouldn't work as smoothly, but I can maybe go for 1 at the next turn. I can go for air forces, increase my population 2 times, build 1 this turn, I still draw 3 cards, and then I can at the next turn go for 2 more air forces, and then I will be at 68 strength, and that hopefully should be enough to pull off a nice war against one of my opponents. I have 1 civil action left. I don't necessarily need any of those cards that are on the row. Maybe I could take rockets away from DANieboy, but he has the classic army tactic anyway, so I thought it is not really necessary, and I will need some happy faces at some point. There could potentially still be an emigration, or actually, no, I think I discarded the emigrations, and civil unrest and prosperity are out, so for the events the happy faces might not be relevant, but I might still need those happy faces, especially if I increase my population. Now that would be unhappy, but with building these team sports now it will be happy. Team sports will also give me more strength for the war, and it just allows me to have as many free civil actions for the next turn as possible. So I'm now at 50 strength, and I would even be at 70 strength in case I go for a war at the next turn. I also still draw 3 cards, and Vlada really blesses me here with even more wars, another war of a culture, another hybrid war, and with having all of those wars, with having the air forces, I was now very confident about my position, especially because I'm not even that much behind in culture any longer, so no, at this point I might even have a shot at winning the game without any war, but of course those wars might make it a lot easier for me, and I was very happy about those draws. Danny Boy offers a peace treaty to me, but that of course I don't accept with having that many wars in hand. Don't want to remove the option to go for a war against Danny Boy. And now the second Air Force is not in the row yet, so Danny Boy goes for more cavalryman, goes actually for another cavalryman, will destroy a farm. He doesn't really need this farm with having the ocean liner service. He takes the patriotism, the efficient upgrade, and then develops the organized religion. And with the patriotism, he is prepared. If air forces should be in the row, he could go for 1 swordsman and 1 air force, so that is probably his defense that he has in mind. But for that he needs the air force, but if those aren't revealed now, then even if those aren't revealed on his turn, at my turn I don't have the knowledge about whether Danny Boy will get those, so just being able to be prepared for it might still be quite valuable, even if he doesn't get the air forces. Because it might still be enough to maybe make me go for war against DANeo. And now the developed territory is revealed. I didn't want to sabotage my war preparation, so I just pass. And Danny Boy is actually able to bid for it. He bids 1 swordsman. So that's of course a bit dangerous in such a war situation, but he has still just enough to go for now 2 swordsmen and an air force. He has enough civil actions to pull it off, and he has enough resources, just enough, so he still can go for a reasonable amount of strength in case he gets air forces. DANeo this turn will play the Revolutionary Idea. He will go for Bro Sports, fixes Happy Faces, also gets some additional strength going like this. Like this he also maybe has a shot at going for Pierre. And then he grabs the reserves just to have even more resources available for the military. And this turn I had to make a decision which player I do want to go for a war against. And for that we of course also have to see that there is actually a copy of Air Force on the row. So Danny Boy will have a shot at going for those Air Force, but it was quite a close decision for me. I was thinking that with having all of those wars in hand, I probably will go for a war against 1 player and then against the other player at the next turn, so that I keep both of them as much on distance as possible. So I was mainly looking at how much can they do now and how much can they do at the next turn maybe. To see maybe which player I should go for this against this turn, and which maybe then can't increase his strength that much compared to what he could do at the next turn for the turn in 2 turns. But it wasn't that easy to say. It's relatively clear to see for Danny Boy. He can go for 2 swordsmen, 1 air force this turn, so his strength potential is almost completely clear. If there's a helpful event like freedom of movement, which I think I didn't have knowledge about, then he doesn't get that big of a bonus, can maybe get 1 additional cavalryman or something like this. So for him, it's relatively easy to calculate the strength potential, also for the strength potential in 2 turns, because in 2 turns he could then just go for another air force, maybe a little bit more, but for him it's relatively clear, but for DANeo it's not clear at all actually. So he depends a lot if he has only fortifications, or if he has entrenchments. He doesn't have, he could also have positional army potentially, but entrenchments might be even better for him here. He could have mechanized army. In this case it could be nice to go for him now, so that he doesn't get the tanks out hopefully, but there could also be a Cold War revealed, and freedom of movement and stuff changes the situation quite a lot for him. And I was thinking that maybe I should go against Danny Boy first, because there could be some help from the event for DANeo. He could have a nice tactic, and then he definitely has quite a bit of a higher strength potential. And against Danny Boy I just know very certain how much big this war will be, and then I can maybe see how if I see more clearly what DANeo can go for, if he maybe has already revealed a tactic, or if maybe some of those H2 events are revealed already. However, I thought that in this situation I should mainly be looking at how I can not win this game, what scenarios might happen that I will at the end not win this game, because I thought I have a very good situation here with having multiple wars in hand, with being able to go for a war this turn and also 1 at the next turn, and that 1 at the next turn I will again be able to increase my strength by even more with going for fundamentalism and with going for another army. So I will be able to go for quite a bit of strength, so I thought I have a very, very nice position here. So I was mainly looking at how could I maybe not win this game. And that at the end mainly influenced my decision here. Because I actually thought it was very close. If I maybe would be more behind now, it would be very close, I think, to which player I should go for, and I wasn't really clear about it. But the one scenario that I thought about, which I thought is not likely, but I still thought it's maybe worth to prepare against, or to not, or to make that as to use this as a reason. Um, and this scenario, how I could maybe not win this game, is I thought that if I go against Danny Boy, and Danny Boy maybe doesn't seem out for him to finish at a nice position any longer, maybe there's a danger that he could resign. If he resigns, first of all, then this one war doesn't really give me a lot of culture, and also then he wouldn't take the Air Force, meaning that DANeo maybe could go for the Air Forces, which maybe could then help him a lot with his strength. So then maybe I would not get a lot out of my first war, and then for the second war I would still be able to win it, but maybe DANeo could then prepare better with having the Air Forces, and also if he has a nice tactic, maybe even without the Air Force he can then pull off a relatively nice defense, and who knows, maybe at the end it could not be enough. Maybe even in this scenario I could win in the end, but I thought that could potentially be dangerous. I didn't really expect Danny Boy to resign. It's an important game, even though I think at this point it might be that there was already no hope left for Danny Boy to advance, but still, I thought maybe there's a chance that he will resign because things might be looking hopeless for him, and then there's maybe a chance that he would do it, and I think that could be a way how I maybe could not win this game, and that was at the end the main reason why I went against DANeo, even though DANeo has a higher strength potential, especially if he gets helpful events or if he has a nice tactic, especially the entrenchments together with Marlene could allow him to go for quite a decent amount of strength, but yeah. Also, I still thought DANeo at this point has still a bit of a better position, even though it's not really that much better. I think Danny Boy still gets one more production, has a wonder, that's something that DANeo doesn't have at the moment. So yeah, but maybe it's still a little bit better. So yeah, but at the end, this scenario that I just talked about was one of the main reasons why I at the end went for against DANeo here. And of course, we have to take a look at how I will go for the turn, and I can destroy one lab, I can get one population normally, or I think I already had one population. No, I can increase my population one time, I can destroy lab, and that allows me to go for 2 more air forces, and even if I destroy this lab I have just enough science to go for fundamentalism at the next turn. So I thought this revolutionary idea and also this urban growth maybe don't do that much for me. I thought about just grabbing the urban growth, but I think the best might just be to take this endowment and play it now for 6 culture before I will steal more culture with the wars, because now I was still at the least culture and I can play this endowment with the Harvard College. And at the next turn I can go for fundamentalism and another army, again going up to plus 17 strength. I do draw one card, even another war, so Vlada is definitely pushing me into a direction here, and Danny Boy opens the historic territory, so no helpful event. But Daniel is willing to win it. He wins it for just one warrior, he gets 11 culture, so that should be a nice deal. And then Danny Boy will go for 2 swordsmen, puts him at 37 strength, and he is willing to grab the air forces and the reserves, just wants to make him as unattractive as a target as possible. Then DANeo will not see it, so there's still 1 H2 event coming. He will go for Marlene. I thought about denying Marlene actually, but I thought if DANeo goes for Marlene, then it will maybe mean that I get Pierre, which I then also was fine with. Then maybe the war won't be as big, but I get the Olympic Games, I get some culture reduction, while Marlene is not really giving that much to myself. I don't really need her military bonus, so yeah, I was willing to leave Marlene to DANeo, even though she might of course help him now with the war. And now it looks like he doesn't have a tactic, or maybe not a tactic that he can go for. No entrenchments for certain, because entrenchments I think could help him quite a bit. He then goes for the satellites, develops the rifleman, interestingly, goes for the revolutionary radial actors. He can still go for riflemen, he can still go for tanks, so he can potentially maybe threaten to still go for some H3 tactics, and he will also still draw 3 cards, so he maybe just develops the rifleman mainly to be a bit more threatening. I now have no. I think at some point I had knowledge about positional army and discarded it, or maybe I will draw it at my next turn. It could also be, but I thought I had knowledge about this tactic. Maybe I already discarded it, but maybe I will also just draw it at my next turn. That could also be. Oh, and actually, then you will also upgrade this one, spending the resources. So I will win the war, and Daniel wasn't able to go for as much strength as he maybe could have if he had a nice tactic, or if maybe something like freedom of movement is revealed. So Daniel would have been able to go for 50 with the 2 swordsmen, 1 air force blade. Daniel is now at 54, so I think that worked out relatively nicely for me. And now I have 1 more war left. And again, it was a bit of a decision which player I should go for. Of course, at the turn before, it was my plan, as I said, maybe to go for 1 player and then go against the next player, but with winning the historic territory, Daniel still has some culture. So we can see he is still in the culture lead. But of course, Danny Boy will get 1 more production, maybe he will see it, and then he will already be only very close behind Daniel. So it's relatively close. I still considered what strength potential both of the players have, and yeah, it would of course feel a bit bad going again against Daniel, because I already went for 2 wars against him, and then going even with the 3rd war against him would feel a bit unfair, but I think my decision shouldn't be influenced in any way by that, because I should just think what is best about for me, and if that at the end is unfair for one of the other players, that is like it is. Sometimes games are a bit unfair. However, in this situation I thought it is the better decision to actually go against Danny Boy, because again there could be something like freedom of movement on top. I think I didn't have knowledge about this event if I remembered correctly, and Daniel has with that potential events and with still having the potential to have some tactics, still the higher strength potential. And Danny Boy, it's again a bit more clear what he can go for. He can go for 2 air forces, and then he has enough resource to maybe also go for 1 cavalryman if he really wants to. If he does freedom of movement, it doesn't really help him to do a lot more. And I will take the military theory away, so he can't go for that. And yeah, so it's just safer what I get from the war out of him, and also he's not that much behind in culture, and he has still the internet, so if I go against Daniel, then he could maybe just ignore strength at all, try to make the internet as big as possible. Probably wouldn't be that big, but it could be somewhat decent, so I think he can do more if I don't go for war against him, and I think it's the right decision to go against him here. And then I can go for the fundamentalism. I destroy 2 things, still having a relatively nice economy, so hopefully the impacts won't be too bad for me. And then I take the military theory away, I take the urban growth that maybe could help me at the next turn, and I also take the civil service. Sadly there is no Pierre. If Pierre would be available, I definitely would have gone for him. But like this, sadly I don't get any Olympic games. I still maybe can go for Pierre at the next turn. And I also of course have to make sure that they end the age, so that there is no danger that Danny Boy would maybe resign. I again draw 3 cards, thanks to having the fundamentalism. Now I have another impact now, but I also have this armed intervention. Impact of science could potentially still be interesting, impact of happiness as well, so I don't think I will play the impact of agriculture. Danny Boy offers the military alliance to Daniel, and Daniel accepts, so he is maybe thinking that he has now very good chances to finish at the 2nd place with this war going on against Danny Boy, and maybe rather wants that I get less culture out of this war, or maybe he also just wants to increase his chances that he maybe can defend against an aggression, or that he is looking more dangerous or that it's looking like it is more likely that he can defend against an aggression. Danny Boy has to destroy some stuff, plays the patriotism, doesn't see it, so there's still an H2 event on top. He will go for 2 air forces, and that's all that he will do. And no, also he had some happy face issues with the H ending with him losing 2 yellow tokens. Then Daniel seeds, and there's no helpful event. I mean, it may be somewhat helpful. Daniel is able to win it for 1 warrior with a war going on between his 2 opponents. So he has now 2 free population, uses those to build a religion. Also lab. The lab is nice for impact of variety and impact of balance as well. So maybe he has played one of those, or maybe he's just speculating that maybe some of those impacts might be in there. Of course, also the impact of harmony is improved by him building some urban buildings. Then it's my turn. I could maybe try to do something with Impact of Science, but I don't know. I mean, Danny Boy might very likely not finish the internet because it's really not that big, and maybe it's better to prepare for impact, so then he might also improve his science production. And so I just rather went for an aggression, which I thought should be very likely to be successful. First of all, I steal, of course, a lot of culture. I play the armed intervention against DANeo, steal 7 culture, and then I go for Pierre. And I can delete some of the units just to build some arenas, going up to 13 culture reduction, and then I just take all of the last technologies away. And then it's Danny Boy's last turn. He will seed, so the first impact is reveals the impact of progress. That was probably seeded by DANeo. I didn't see the single impact. I was too much distracted by going for wars and aggressions. And no, that very likely was seeded by DANeo. It's not really great for Danny Boy. Danny Boy will upgrade 1 multimedia, upgrades 1 religion, and then is going for another printing press and even another religion. And also a warrior, maybe just preparing for a bunch of impacts. Before the final impacts, the standings, the culture there are some gaps. I have quite a lead, DANeo is also quite a lead against Danny Boy, so very likely there won't be any changes with the final impacts, but who knows. First impact is the impact of population. That one was maybe played by Danny Boy, who had the ocean liner service and also some food production, gets 20 out of it. Then we have the impact of architecture, which is also better for Danny Boy, so he's catching up to DANeo. The impact of variety, probably played by DANeo, he also prepared for that impact in his last turn, and it is also better for him than for Danny Boy. We have the impact of technology, maybe also played by DANeo, it's a bit better for him than for Danny Boy. And the last impact is the impact of colonies, maybe also played by DANeo, and then he gets +6 against Danny Boy, he gets even +9 against me, but I still have a big enough lead to be at the first place at the end, so I'm able to win this game. DANeo ends up at the second place, and Danny Boy at the last place. So yeah, with that the last game of this World Championship stage has finished. I think this game just went relatively smoothly for me. I got Hammurabi with the pyramids, which I think at the end turned out to be the right decision because I got the monarchy, I made a nice revolution, I then after this was able to get the iron, get the production up, got the Harvard College, and just had with that quite a decent economy. And then I think it was quite important to get the cannons. With that I could go for a lot of military pressure, and then it just went, I just had very nice draws in H3, getting 2 wars very early, getting even more wars later on, and with that I could just convert my nice economical situation and my military advantage into a nice win. I think maybe I could have, I think I didn't really need the last war to win. Maybe I could have even have chances with a 1 war, if I then maybe go for a wonder and some nice impacts. And now I was occupied with just using all of my politics phase for wars and aggressions, so maybe I could have also done something with that, but still, it was very nice to have those wars, and those definitely made it a lot more likely that I was able to win this game. I also got the air forces, so things just went very nicely for me in H3, and maybe also before already with getting the Harvard College and stuff. So yeah, just a very smooth game for me at the end. And now with this game finished, we can also take a look at the final standings of this and of my World Championship group. And the placements were of course already clear before the outcome of this game, but now we can see also the points, and with also winning this last 3-player game, I'm definitely very happy about my performance in the stage. It was a bit similar to the stages before, that my first 2 4-player games didn't went too great, they were solid, but with that I definitely felt a bit nervous. DANeo was able to get some quick wins in at the beginning, and I thought it might be difficult to still finish at the first place, but there were still a lot of games to come, and I then managed to play them relatively well and get some nice results out of those 3 and 2-player games, and those just went relatively nicely for me. And so at the end I'm very happy about my performance, with finishing at the first place and 33 points. DANeo, after starting with some wins, wasn't able to continue that nicely, but still is a very strong result at the end with 22 points, and with that he will also continue in the tournament in the lower bracket. Danny Boy is at the 3rd position at the end. He has 9 points. At the end, it looks like there's a very big gap and that he didn't have any nice chances to advance. But for most parts of when the games were playing, and with the standings that you have seen, he always was still in the running, and I also think he played quite well. And yeah, but maybe at the end some games didn't really went those nicely for him. And there was also, for example, this game against DANeo. I mean, I didn't watch it, but the score was very close at the end, so he could have definitely also relatively easily maybe gotten some more points. I think he definitely played quite well, but sadly he will be out of the tournament now. And then at the 4th position we have Vaika, who is at the end at 8 points, will also be out of the tournament. And yeah, so those are the final standings of this group. And I, at the next stage, will then continue in the upper bracket, and I can maybe also already say you that indeed with me winning this last game, it was indeed important, because thanks to this win I will be in the top seeding basket for the next stage, and with that I will be able to avoid, for example, to play in the same group as Irene or ST4NKK, who is the new rising star. Both of those players are the top 2 positions in the clicker rating and also managed to get some nice results in the stage, but I won't meeting them, which is quite nice. So this last win was at the end indeed quite important. And yeah, so at this stage of the World Championship is over. I will continue in the tournament in the upper bracket of the next stage. There will only be, as we can see, it were 16 upper brackets groups, so 16 players will only play. There are only 4 upper bracket groups in the next stage, so there will be really some very strong players. So I hope you're looking forward to the next stage, or yeah, to the next stage of the World Championship. However, before we are going to see those World Championship games, we will first see the next games of the International Championship. There I also already shared the first game of the season, but now I decided to just put all of the World Championship games in a row, so that you can maybe more easily follow all of that. But now the next games that you will see are the next games of the International Championship season, so I hope you're looking forward to that as well. However, I also have to tell you that I already will announce now that I won't cover the next Intermezzo Championship season, because the thing is that the next stage of the World Championship has already been started, and I have now in the last weeks uploaded a video every 3 days, which is fine for me. That's something that I probably can keep up with. But if I also want to show the Intermezzo Championship games, I have to put even more videos out, and then it might get a little bit stressful for me, and I don't want this thing to be stressful for me. I want to make those videos because it is fun doing so. And so yeah, and even if I keep the 3 days, if I manage to keep it like this, that I get a new video, upload a new video every 3 days, then it will take 3 weeks until the next 6 International Championship games are finished, and then there might already been the first World Championship games finished. So I think that would just be too much to also cover the Intermezzo Championship, so I won't cover it. Or maybe I will again cover 1 or 2 games, but maybe I even won't cover it at all. I don't know exactly, but I definitely won't cover it fully. Alright, so that's maybe not that great news, but the good news is that there are definitely some more videos coming out in the next week, so you definitely will have something to watch. A lot of tournaments are going on at the moment, and yeah, and the next games will be the International Championship games. Alright, and then with that, I hope it was an interesting stage for you, some interesting games from the World Championship. I hope it was yeah, interesting for you to watch. And then, yeah, have a nice time and see you in the next videos for those International Championship matches.